Okay, I think we're all hopping on. 1, 2, 3. Can we hear me now? And then camera. Can we see me now? Okay. This is a fun day for technical difficulties, but we're rocking with it. Sometimes you just got to be willing to roll with the punches. Here's a QR code really quickly. If you can scan it and then let me know where you are with GPTs, that would be great. I'm going to go to fill out to make sure I can see those responses as they come in. So that's a quick little QR code. I'll give y'all a minute to do that, and then we're going to dive in because I have some fun stuff for y'all. I'm going to show you a little bit behind the scenes of a few GPTs and automations I have just to get y'all's ideas flowing, and then we're going to walk into a more practical part of today, which is helping you start the process of ideating around your GPT. Now, hopefully what you've seen for the last few sessions is that GPTs, they can feel a little magical, right? But when you build them, they're not. They are really you giving enough context to an AI to do the thing or do a thing on your behalf. And so simply put, a GPT comes down to instructions and knowledge. I'm going to tell you to do a thing, and I'm going to try and give you some context on how to do that so you do it better than just kind of shooting from your hip. I want to show you what that looks like in reality. So before you fill out the results, I was the only one who did. That's why that says 100%. So we're going to update that right now. Take a look at this spread so far. So the vast majority of everyone on this live right now, you have a GPT account. Some of you have tried building it for yourself. A few of you have tried building it for someone else, and at least one person has sold a GPT. If you have some time, I'm actually going to take this QR code and drop it down here again in case you want to drop in and give your results, and we can circle back to that later if we have time. But everyone on the call has some sort of experience with a GPT. And if you don't, the good thing is we have the replays for last videos, but you're going to get the big wow today with these GPTs. Okay. So let's dive in. So before we go all into la la land with GPTs, you got to know something. GPTs are just one way. There's so many ways to build a micro tool to digitize what you're doing in your business or for clients and customers. There are automations, you can make apps, you can do so many things, and GPTs are just one way. So regardless if the outcome of your best micro tool is going to be a GPT or not, all these things hold true, which is starting with your experiences and your expertise and your own efficiencies. That's where you're going to start. And so we're going to get personal. But before we turn it over to you, we're going to start with myself. And so when I build for myself, I usually build where there is friction. Friction is another way of talking about pain, challenges. But usually it's like an annoyance, right? There's something I'm frustrated with. And I want it to be better and a bit more seamless. And so what that looks like in some areas of my life is I don't enjoy filling out long online forms, particularly because now I end up talking to to AI when I do things. It's frustrating when I'm sitting at a form and there are a bunch of open-ended responses and I don't even know how many pages of questions this is. And some of this is redundant and I have to do this maybe over and over again multiple times. And I don't really love it. And so what I've done is I've created a form filler GPT for myself. This is what those instructions look like. I'm telling it that it is a form assistant and that whenever I give it a screenshot, so it's expecting to get a screenshot from me, that it's going to help me fill it out for clarity and completeness. I want it to use simple formatting, so that way it doesn't give me something that looks like a massive document and I just have to put it in a little text box. You can't put bold words in a text box, right? You can't make large text and small text in a text box. So just assume that things need to be simple when you give me responses. If what is this? Maintain context when user provides answers, yes, in multiple parts, yes. So if I'm jumping all over the form, answering questions out of order, because sometimes that's just what happens, I want it to actually maintain the context and keep track of that. Some other bits here, don't get fancy again with the formatting, because I have to copy what you give me and put it back into a form, right? And so these set of instructions are what I give the GPT. Now, in full disclosure, not to get too meta, I don't sit and perfectly handwrite these instructions. I normally am dictating kind of what I want to happen. And then I have a GPT that will rewrite this in a nice polished way. So if you got my GPT factory workbook, you actually have a link to use the same GPT that makes these instructions. You get to use it as part of that activity. And it's a GPT in the workbook for you that helps. It's called GPT Wordsmith. And it just rewrites instructions. And so I use that myself to get this polished version of instructions because I don't, I'm literally just blabbing, right? All of my griefs and burdens and, things that I want to be right. And I'm telling, okay, go back and make this um, good for a GPT to follow. And so again, build around those pain points. So maybe filling out forms is not your jam. You're like, okay, that's cool. I don't really care for that. This is another pain point of friction in my own business. Invoices and receipts and all these other bookkeeping documents. Again, I am a tech strategist. What I am not is a bookkeeper or accountant. And the moment you start tracking these in your business, you realize nobody sends receipts or invoices the same way. They come in like attachments. Yeah, they can be attached. It can just be the email itself. They can come with a link in the email where you have to click and then download. It's not really consistent and there's no like laws around it with rigid rules, which is fine. But how do I deal with that? How do I deal with the fact that I could get an invoice or receipt in any way and I have to process it? So what I've done is that I took this a bit beyond ChatGPT. Like I'm using AI, but in a different way. So I have an app that I use to automate. But if you have Zapier, you can do the same thing too. And so I have some logic here inside of this automated workflow that says whenever I put a folder inside of this invoices or a file inside of my invoices folder, because I have one in my Google Drive account, there's a folder named at invoices. And just for my own sanity, I will name any folder that triggers an automation with the at symbol in front of it. So I know what's going on. And I drop it inside that folder. It will then take that file, whether or not it is an image, like it's like a receipt, or it is a document or a PDF. It will take that, it will scrape all the words out of it, and then it will pull the vendor information, the date, any kind of transaction IDs or whatever, and then it will go and find my annual folder. It will move it into that folder for me. And then it will name it by the vendor and the date and like make sure it's consistent. It adds it to a spreadsheet that I have so I can go and search all my transactions. It's really funny because my bookkeeper is on the call. So this is hilarious because I dread getting the question like, when is this transaction from? And the line item, I don't know. Like I don't know what it was from. It's like $1.75. I have no remembrance of what that is. Or it's more than that, but like the statement description is not descriptive enough. And so I have this scrape all the information so that when somebody asks me a really ambiguous question, and instead of it killing like 30, 45 minutes of my day, now I usually have a spreadsheet to go search and say, okay, where did these words show up in? Great. I track the link back to the Google Drive file and I give it back to them. And anytime this is the iterative nature of automation, right? If I realize they're asking me a question and I don't know how to answer it, I will say, okay, so that took me longer than it should have. How can I go update this automation to make this better? Then you're like, so what about this AI step where we're pulling this information? It looks a little like this. So this is what I want to get back into. We're going to bring it back to AI and ChatGPT. In here, I've given it a prompt and told it, look at all the text that we took out of the document, whether that's an image or PDF, look at all the words in it. And I want you to pull out the vendor name. I want you to pull out what type of document. Get the timestamp and the date, because sometimes I need the time and or the date. Find the transaction ID. Get the year. Did it even have a total in it? Is there a description of the items? Are there any notes that might not fit into any other of those bits of information that I might need to refer to? But the most important bit about this is the document type, because there's some things that I want to track and my bookkeeper doesn't give two squats about, right? It is just something I need to keep because it won't go inside my bookkeeping system. It's not going to fit inside Xero QuickBooks, but I might need it for context. And so inside type, I have said these are all the different types a document can be. This is literally the same thing that's happening if you're in a ChatGPT chat and I upload the document and say, hey, what type of document is this? Pick from these options. But it's happening in an automation and it's going to run every time I upload a file, right? And so it's going to say, is this an invoice? Is this a receipt? Is this a transaction? Is it an order? Is it a refund? Or is it something else? Now, the good thing about AI, I know when we're using ChatGPT, we're having full-blown conversations. We're going back and forth. We're doing all this stuff with it. But AI is actually really, 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 really good at classifying anything you give it because it has general knowledge of these types of things. I didn't have to tell it what an invoice is, right? OpenAI has already trained the model to do that. And so if I just needed to make a decision and say, man, is this a type of document? It has enough knowledge to make a good guess. And then I found that it was sending spam documents to my bookkeeper that weren't really good, which is why I added an other type. And so if it determines it's an other, I then use Relay app to actually decide, and it's not really visible here, but where it says, let's actually open this up. Down here where it looks at the type, you can see that we're analyzing the type. And if it's any of these that I know I need to go to my bookkeeper, we just forward it to the bookkeeper in an email, right? So now the automation's even forwarding it for me. Awesome. But if it's not, what happens is that I then get a message that says, hey, we don't know what to do with this document. Tell me what type it is, to make sure that I'm not sending anything that doesn't quite make sense to my bookkeeper. And so I'm belaboring this point a little bit to get you to realize that ChatGPT is one way you can use AI. But I actually love starting there because that's where I got really good at understanding what it could do, right? Got good at understanding the prompts. And so that's why I'm saying, let's just start with a GPT. Because even if the final form of what you're doing doesn't make sense for a GPT, if there's any point where you're going to be writing a prompt and you want to get good at giving it instructions, ChatGPT is the easiest way, or Claude if you use Claude. Using any of those chat apps is going to be the easiest way to test and see how it behaves, get a good feel for it, right? And then once you have a process that works, you can say, okay, this looks really, really good now. I'm going to put this in an automated workflow for myself. Now, to be frank, if I'm building an automation for other people that looks a bit more like an app, ChatGPT and Relay app, as you notice, they're all hooked to my accounts. They're hooked to my Google Drive. It's my GPT account. It's all my stuff. So that switches us into building an app, right? It's a bit of a different process. But remember, if I start with demoing it for myself, then I have the foundation of how it works. So before we get into the other demos, I want to switch gears a little bit. And now I want you to think about yourself. If you have a piece of paper, or anywhere you can jot this down, ask yourself these questions. Where do you see friction in your work life? What are the back office tasks that you're doing? Or where do clients feel like they're doing work that you think could be better done automated, or that you're doing client work that could be better done in an automated way? Have you resolved any of those points of friction? So whether it was manual or semi-automated before, or you delegated it to someone else who solved it for you, right, and came up with their own process, have you solved that problem at least once? The cool thing about building automation now versus like 20 years ago, that automation I showed you for that bookkeeping process would have had to have been written totally from scratch. And at some point in the last 10 years, I would have been a person who would have built that from scratch, right? And the best thing about today is that you don't need to have nearly as much of formality when it comes to building automation. You just have to have a thesis on how you get it done. And if you solved it before, that's enough to start building these solutions or outsourcing it to someone else to be built for you. Is there a process you've optimized that you can replicate for bigger impact? Now, if you're thinking about monetization and how you productize it, this is the third question that you're going to care about. Is this something that you've done that someone else would value it being done for them, right? In an automated way. There's just some things that aren't great candidates for automation. Like, I have business coaches and I've had mentors. And while the idea of having a GPT that helps me navigate their resources and their materials helpful, I don't want like a GPT to talk to that replaces them. That's not what I want. So there are going to be some places where, automation doesn't make sense, but there might be all these auxiliary things around some core deliverable that you do. That's like, well, automation might be a nice touch. It might be complementary. So with that, I'm going to invite y'all to share some of these in the chat. What are any areas of friction? I know before we mentioned things like creating copy for emails, and we're going to get to social posts too. Emails, Sarah. Okay, Sarah said project management. Be more specific, right? Is there something in project management? There a specific part of it that is just annoying, right? Or you do it well, but you can't spend all your time doing it that you are now. I want to see a few more of these in the chat. Yes, yes, customer service emails for sure. Keeping track of deadlines and reminders and informing other team members. Ooh, okay, that's fun. Marketing copy for course creators launching in Kajabi. Yes, that is very specific. I love it. Okay, let's go through some of these ideas really quickly. Responding to customer service emails. Nick, that sounds like that is for yourself. right? That is a internal business tool that would help you respond to customer service emails better. If we're talking about the core pieces of a GPT to make that successful, um, that makes me think of the fact that, well, it needs a book of answers to respond to. Back in the day, your girl used to be a level 2 or 3 engineer support person at a cloud company. What that means is after the first rounds of customer service, something couldn't be solved, it came back to me. And so, but when it came back to me, there was all of these there was all these bits of documentation that told me, oh, this is this kind of problem, go here. And our level 1 through 3 support also had a massive guide of things to look at and say, if the customer's talking about this is how we respond. This is who we level this up to in the organization to get more context, right? And so that's your book of knowledge. And so Nick says, yes, he has a spreadsheet of responses to give it, which is awesome. And so that means that we have the core piece of information we need for a GPT like that to be successful. So the next thing is having a way to get those customer service requests and emails. And so if you can just bare bones, if we can copy the email into a GPT that already has the book of responses in it or a chat, it can begin to go through and start to recommend things, right? And that's the best way to try it. If it starts to wig out and it's like, oh, there were better answers, that can mean one of two things. We need to make our documentation easier for the GPT to read. And if it's in a spreadsheet, it's usually good enough. Um, or we might need to, instead of just changing the way the spreadsheet or the document is ordered, we might actually need to be better in instructing it on how to find the right answers, right? But that's the basis of that. Sarah, you mentioned keeping track of deadlines and reminders and informing other team members. Keeping track of deadlines and reminders. That could be a bit sophisticated for a GPT to keep track of. As far as like replacing a project management tool, but informing other team members, if you were to take your project management tool, so if you use Notion, Asana, ClickUp, Todoist, doesn't really matter, even if you use a spreadsheet, right? If you have it in some software that hooks up through your automation tool, then now you have a real solution there, because you can have an automation that says every day, every 15 minutes, every hour, look through tasks and find all the things that are not done. The anything that's not done, it's overdue, right? I want you to go then ping this person and send a reminder. Maybe it is at end of day. You used to tell it at the end of every day. Let's say quitting time is like 5 p.m. So at 4:30, we run an automation that goes through and looks at anything that probably should have been completed today. And then you ping your team, either in Slack or wherever, back inside that tool. And then you say, hey, leave a comment and tag this person in the comment telling them, we need you to update the status of this, because the status says it's not done. And so I need you to just give a reason for that, which is what I find is the biggest thing about project management. It's not so much like things aren't done. It's that we're not up to date on what's happening and why it's happening. And so then we can't triage and help the team, get to our goal. And so just reminding people and saying, hey, I need a status update on this, right? Just remind people to do a status update, and explain why it's not done. And even in that reminder, just telling them, hey, how can I help you? What do we need to surface to the team to get this unblocked, right? Do we need to find another resource? Just having a little like 2 sentences there to make them feel like this isn't the teacher checking in, right? Or your boss just checking in to like keep tabs on you, but reminding them like, this is how I support you efficiently. So you can add those nice touches to your automation. There's value to your automations that you're building. We have marketing copy. Yes. So I don't know if we have an example here. And the LinkedIn one will kind of give you a feel for it, but it's not quite what we're going to talk about for copy. But I've paid for training and courses and even have lead magnets on how to write good sales copy, whether it's for a course or something else. And the best thing that I do with my lead magnets is that I take them and I create a GPT that follows that process. And so I'm going to show you exactly how I do that with my LinkedIn GPT really, really soon here. Nick asked, how can it open the emails, read them, and use the spreadsheet to respond to it? Good question. So a couple things here. You can give a GPT actions and tools for it to go directly into your inbox and find emails. So if I had an automation that has a filter that, a Gmail filter that labels everything as a support ticket, then I would probably build an action into a chat GPT, like literal GPT that says, go into my inbox, look for everything that's tagged as a support ticket, and then help me go through and generate the answers. If you just upload the spreadsheet to the chat, right, literally just upload the spreadsheet, it has access to it. Um, and then if you upload the email, whether by automation, so that's like at scale, right? Particularly if I was outsourcing that to somebody else on my team, and it wasn't just me, I'd probably build into the GPT the ability to go search the right inbox and find the tickets. That's probably how I would do that. But you can still copy and paste the email into ChatGPT. And so long as you give it the email content, copy paste or by automation, and you give it the spreadsheet by upload, that's all it really needs in order to respond. So that might be a fun demo to do something practical on later. We'll see. So let's talk about these other things. Now, from all the examples here, I heard all the main thing that came about is that we're looking to build GPTs for ourselves. Is there anyone else here that is anyone on the chat that is looking to build a GPT that someone else uses? I want to make sure I speak to that if there's somebody on the call. Okay, we have some people who want to productize your GPT. Then in that case, there are some questions that you want to ask yourself and answer. Now we want to think about people and problems. Who is that person that you are looking to build this for? I feel like I'm missing my notes here. This is not my good notes. Let's go back. There we go. Those are the good notes. Okay. So, people and problems. Who is that one real person that you're going to build this for? The one user. Let's put that in the chat real quick. Monetization, yes, I know. Why not? If we're going to put all this effort into automating, might as well monetize it. Describe that person. What demographic do they represent? Another way I think about it, course creators, I see that for Elaine. Another way I think about it is you got to pick one person's real name, like somebody you know who would buy this, because it's a lot easier to build something for someone real and thinking about, oh, this person might get stuck here, right? This person has asked these questions before. If you build for that one, it'll make it easier to build for all the others. And then what group do they represent? So working backwards from Elaine, we've identified the group first, course creators. Is there a specific course creator that you've worked with before that you can speak directly to the problems that they're seeing? Okay, Jennifer, awesome. And so now if I was going to go and build a GPT for Jennifer to help her with her course, what specific things has Jennifer been stuck with? We're working in the chat, y'all. And don't worry, because fun surprise, next week is going to be all hot seats. So we're going to do this again next week, and everyone's going to get a chance, if they want to share. You're going to get an email about that. So don't feel left out here. Okay, so Elaine said Jennifer is a course creator, and she doesn't understand tech. Okay, that's a blanket. We're getting closer. So where in creating the course does she get stuck? What's one place that she gets stuck? Has a great idea, but can't get it out into the world. Okay, so that is more around product development of the course, right? If she doesn't know how to take her idea and then turn that into a course, there's some steps she has to go through. There's the practical one of uploading her files to Kajabi. Now, a GPT can't do that for her, right? Because Kajabi won't let you integrate at that level, to my knowledge, to do it on her behalf. So we can't do that. But I would imagine Jennifer might even get stuck on what to put in those files. So we're talking about somebody who has an idea, but probably hasn't developed all the course assets and materials. And so there is one GPT that'll be really, really good with ideation, helping her take her idea, asking her questions about who's the ideal person to go through her course, and helping her figure out how do we break this concept down into small parts? What sections should you probably have in your course? What's some of the content you should have in that course? If it's reasonable to have quizzes, what are the quizzes we should have in that course? So just having like a course creating kind of coach to help her get that nuance, that would probably be helpful for her. Navigating the tools. So Elaine mentioned here that, let me follow up with this chat. She created it, but can't figure out what to say. Yep, on the description, marketing, emails, all that stuff. Similarly, if you have a framework for the emails that she's going to need around marketing a course, you can give her those templates. And then again, have a GPT that's like, this is a GPT that will help you come up with the content for the course and the whole framework around delivering it. Now you have another GPT loaded with all the email templates that can then write those emails for her. So if you have a course, you're probably going to have a pre-launch sequence to announce the course. You're going to have emails that are going to go out the week of the launch. If it's a cohort model, you might have emails, templates to remind people to show up for the live sessions, right? So you might provide all those templates and load it up into a GPT. And then Jennifer would say, okay, I'm on this module of the course creating process, and I need help writing my email templates. If the GPT actually knows what modules are in your program and it has your templates, it now has enough context to know how to help Jennifer correctly. And then when it comes to uploading, content, anything like all the instructions around using an app, the great thing about Kajabi is that they have documentation, right? And so, yes, you can link to that documentation and then give that information to GPT that says, oh, at this point, you're supposed to be uploading your content in Kajabi. Here's a link to where you should go to see that. And Elaine, you might even make your own Loom videos to instruct them. And so you might pair the two and say, hey, this is a video. It's in your course, but maybe you forgot that. Maybe you forgot that there's already somewhere in the course curriculum that this thing exists. Go click here and go back to that, right? And so again, looking at your GPT as like the course companion too. You can have a companion GPT that just guides them through. And it's like the one GPT anybody would sit down and go to. Let's call it Elaine's course GPT. That's the one I sit down and use. And then whenever I have to do a specific activity, I have the specific GPTs that will help me complete certain tasks. Catalina said people have too many tools and ways to integrate into one ecosystem. Yeah, that is a whole bucket of worms. There's so many tools now than there ever were, and they all overlap and what they do and don't do. And that can make integration not really straightforward. And at some point, I tried even making my own tech audit GPT. When the situation was like simple, it was really effective. When it became complex and the GPT had internet turned on, it just started making stuff up. So even AI right now can't tell you the right way to build an automated workflow. I can tell you that. It's complicated. Let's do a few more chats and then we'll move on to the other examples that I have here. My client has too many Google Sheets, tabs, and tracking various. This is from L. My client has too many Google Sheets and tabs and tracking various names, referrals, and sources. You need to clean up and have one sheet for all purposes. Interesting. L. That actually sounds like a client might be outgrowing as Google Sheet and they need a database. So this is where the direct solution might not really be a GPT. At least not directly, right? We might need to clean them up. And yes, you can use Google Sheet for as long as it will take you. But when you start wanting to relate data together and track stuff and clean stuff up and have it be more usable, you might be outgrowing the Google Sheet and it might be time for a database app. There are a number of them that I've used. Coda is one. You're seeing me using Notion right now. I use Coda as well as Notion in my business. I've used SmartSuite. There are a number of them that are going to be better at creating not just a sheet, but really helping you manage the data and all of its connections. And the good thing about those three apps that I listed is that they all integrate with all the major automation tools, which means that you can also bring them into ChatGPT as well. So if I take that, just starting with the Google Sheet and say, okay, I have this Google Sheet that's tracking people, their referrals and sources. Well, then if I give ChatGPT access to that document, then it's going to be smart. Airtable, yes, Airtable as well. I used to love Airtable. I do. I still like them a lot. I think they're good. I just have a bone to pick about their customer support policy, But Airtable is a very solid platform. And if you're on their higher plans, it's one of the better tools, honestly, for what it can do for a lot of people. Okay, next. How do we make sure that this is secure and not put the part? So I'm reading Serena's question. How do we make sure this is secure and not put it into part of the general GPT knowledge for IP and whatnot? Do we need to make sure it's a custom GPT? Great question. So if you are using chatgpt.com, you are using the consumer version. Oh, my lawnmower just started. That's great. If you're using chatgpt.com, you are using the consumer grade version of their AI. So what that means is they're not using your data to train on so long as they tell you that. But I'm sure they have enough things in their terms of service to possibly use your data to train on. They do give you some ways to opt out when you're building a custom GPT. So that's what I would do. But Serena, for your business and the scale of your business, it might make sense for you to invest in creating your own workflows outside of ChatGPT that use Relay app or Zapier or something else. Because when you go through those platforms, you're using the B2B version of OpenAI, and they don't track your data, or they don't use it to train on, I should say. Your data is tracked, but it's tracked in your account for you, right? They're not reading your data. And so yes, you probably want to move away from using the direct ChatGPT interface for that sensitive client information and move that over into the OpenAI platform by way of other automation tools. So that way it's outside of their general model and used for training. Look at that. We see Catalina saying that she's going to be Elaine's guinea pig. This is why I love the chat. This is why we love talking about ideas in public, because you could actually find some of those people you're building for. Okay. I think we are good on the chat. There's so many other things to follow up on. I do have a website, and you can find me at sayla.co. That's sayla.co, and I can put that in the email follow up as well. And then I do one-on-ones as well. So if you're looking for somebody to just look at what you're doing, then I can do that for you. Let's talk about what I've done. Let's come back to the fun stuff. So friction. I'm not a copywriter. I don't do social media, like, really, right? I'm on social media, like many of us on this live, but my business and my expertise is not really in social media. I'm sure if I committed myself wholeheartedly to it for the next 2 years, I'd become an expert, but that's not me. And so as I was coming into 2025, I found this amazing YouTube video on how to be better at LinkedIn in 2025, following trends, yada, yada. And it was a really great conversation. And not only was it great, during the video, Yasmin talked specifically about ways to write really good, effective LinkedIn posts, right? Again, remember, I'm not a LinkedIn expert. I mean, I could become one, all things are possible, but it's not my thing. And so I realized, though, that if you use notebooklm.google, and if anybody's used notebooklm, just put like a 1 in the chat if you've ever used it. And if you've never heard of it until now, give me a 0 in the chat. NotebookLM is almost like Google's version of ChatGPT. And I say almost because it's not exactly, and I actually want to show you what that is. I'll come back to that. But I used NotebookLM. I gave it the YouTube video link, and it gave me a transcript of the video. And then inside NotebookLM, I told it to extract all the strategies that were discussed, along with specific steps for writing a LinkedIn post. Why NotebookLM, I think, is better at this than ChatGPT is because NotebookLM has really been designed to be more of a learning companion than just a general chat. It is designed to help you extract methods. I think there's buttons to create like flashcards and Quizlets and stuff like that. Like, it really is made for learning. I guess that's why they call it the notebook. And so it's great at pulling insights and practical things out of whatever you give it. You can actually upload any file, like ChatGPT, almost any file. I don't think that's versatile as ChatGPT. But you can upload different file types. It will link to things in your Google Drive. And it will then mine all that information and answer any question you give it. So I knew that it's going to be really good at extracting steps and instructions from whatever I give it. That's exactly what I did. And I turned that into a LinkedIn GPT. Now I want you to take a look at these instructions before I switch screens again and go through that tech stuff. I told it, give me all this information from the transcript. Tell me how I write awesome posts. Then I went back to my GPT wordsmith and said, turn this into some cool instructions. And so here, I had it extract different parts from that YouTube video for me. It has, and I told it to come up with questions to ask me as the user if I didn't provide enough context, and then define the workflow for the GPT to follow once it has the answers. And so here, whenever I create a LinkedIn post, it should know to ask me, what's the primary message of the goal? Who's the target audience? What's the actual CTA? And then these are the steps that the GPT should follow. If I want it to analyze and improve content, if I'm giving it a post, I'm saying, hey, I'm not really sure. This was just off the cuff, right? We have steps for that. And I pulled all this based off of that YouTube video. It's a really rich video, y'all. If I need to respond to something thoughtfully and I'm not sure exactly how to respond, and if you're somebody like me who sometimes struggles with emails, I'm also going to bet that sometimes when you get an email without a clear call to action, it can be like the bane of your day, because you're like, oh my gosh, this email should probably require a response. I don't know. They didn't ask a real question. Like, not exactly sure. Sometimes it's just like, I shelve this away for later if it's not clear what the call to action is. But similarly with social posts, sometimes you just get somebody's like, hey, love that, right? But you're like, okay, I actually want to build a relationship with this person, not just give them a thumbs up. Maybe I want to respond thoughtfully and I'm blanking on this, right? This will help me create a thoughtful comment. And Yasmin was really clear on how to respond to those types of comments on LinkedIn. So my GPT is not making up these steps. This is all based off of the rich information that came off of that YouTube video. And I used NotebookLM to pull all these things out of it. So I don't have to be the LinkedIn expert. Yasmin is the LinkedIn expert. I just built a GPT off of his own expertise for myself, right? So seeing that, seeing all of those things and realizing, okay, if I have like an opinion, a method, or something, all you really have to do is have a transcript of it. Just have a transcript of it and then start asking ChatGPT to help you turn those into steps that can be followed. And then you'll get something that can be turned into GPT. Now, I did say that I was going to show you Notebook LM because I think this is a cool time to do it. If not now, then when, you know? So let's pull that up and give you a feel for what it looks like. Let's switch screens. I'm going to share something else. So this is what Notebook LM looks like. It's not exactly ChatGPT, but you know, it's similar-ish in how you use it. It's also the app where if you've noticed people talking about using AI to create podcasts, Notebook LM is what's doing that. You can give it all your information and tell it to create like a podcast audio for you, um, which can be good, can be bad, just depends. But it's worth trying if you want to give it a go. So what you can do here is add your source of information. Again, it could be doc slides, a website. It can scrape a web page for you. It could be a YouTube video. So long as it's not a private YouTube video, it'll get it for you. Or any text you have, to just give it to it. And it uploads it as a source of information, similar to a ChatGPT or a GPT, you know? And then you begin to chat with it. And so I can ask it, what is the best way to write a LinkedIn post? And again, it's going to answer this not just off of some random search on the internet, but it's going to answer this based off of the sources on the left. If you have documents, whether that is just you again riffing in a transcript of you blabbing about something, it is your lead magnets, it is your course material, it is your own SOPs and documentation, it is your book of documentation for customer service stuff. Whatever you give it on the left, Notebook LM is really good at providing, I think, more tactical responses. And so here it pulled out all the things that I knew it would. It's telling me what's the right way to write a hook because Yasmin was very specific about how to write a hook in that video. He talked a good bit about avoiding clickbait, right? So it's pulling all these things. And it cites all of its sources. And so that's the other thing where I think ChatGPT can sometimes fill gaps a little bit creatively. Notebook has been trained to be pretty strict about where it pulls information from. That's why I like using Notebook if I'm trying to make something that's based off of some sort of method or process. Um, and so this is what it gave me. And so I can take all of this now, copy paste it, and then go turn that into a GPT if I wanted to. But Notebook also lets you save things. So let's say I really like this response and I want to just save it. Save to note. Now it's a note here on the side. And so if I ever want to go back and find this, I can go back and get everything it just said to me and use that later. And so it really is that simple. Give it some sources, ask it the questions for the things you want to pull out, and then you could copy paste this, go back to ChatGPT and say, hey, turn this into a set of GPT instructions to create awesome LinkedIn posts. We have one more thing I want to show y'all. Let's go back to Notion if I can find it. That is the main problem at the moment. Okay, let's see. We're back. Now, I've talked about some things that are a bit general in business, but I also want to show you something that's very specific to me. In my business, I make Coda workbooks and I make Notion formulas because I build things inside of Notion. For my business, I do stuff for myself there, but with Coda, sometimes I build things for other people in Coda and myself. And so it's annoying to like do the same thing over and over again, and it can just get annoying. And so in order to optimize this, I've made GPTs that are very specific to what I do. And that's what I want to show you next. So I think this is where we're all looking at not just having GPTs in our business development workflows, but having these GPTs show up when we're actually doing things in the business, when we're delivering on work or we're building things and we're working on documents, right? How do I get tools that actually help me do the thing that I do? One of the things I do is that I write Notion formulas because I use Notion and sometimes I needed to do math the right way or pull data the right way and stuff like that. Well, because I also use a number of tools, I get confused sometimes with the syntax of it, right? Like if you're good at writing a Google Sheet formula, it's kind of like that. And if you know that Google Sheet and Microsoft Excel are different in how they write formulas, Well, then Smart Suite's different, Notion's different, Airtable's different, Coda's different, Smart Sheet's different. All these different tools have different ways of writing formulas. And if I'm not using that tool for like a consistent week or two, then me remembering the slight differences is just annoying and what things are called. And so what I've done is that I've created a GPT that helps me keep track of my little formulas in Notion. So if I write something that works in Google Sheets, but it won't work in Notion, I can just ask it to kind of help me work through what's the right version of this to work in Notion. And so given it a name, given it a description, and this here has a really simple set of instructions, right? It's just supposed to analyze Notion formulas, help me with following best practices, and then break down formulas and offer alternative approaches. This is a really simple set of instructions. That's it. All I did here was an upload PDFs of documentation from Notion's website. And then somebody made a cheat sheet online with all the formulas listed in it. That's all I did. And so I said, what is it that I do when I'm stuck? Well, I will search Notion's website to look for documentation. So let's copy that documentation. I like a spread cheat sheet because it's one sheet that has all the different formulas on it. Let me go see if I can find someone's cheat sheet really quickly and just save it as a PDF and upload it to the GPT. Then I gave it some pretty simple instructions. Is it perfect? No. Is it more helpful than what I've been doing? Yes. And so as I use it and I realize, oh, it kind of did some things wrong, I just update the instructions and tweak it. And so this is normally how I go about building a GPT, where I don't really have a guide for it. It's probably my own process. It's my own thing. I'm kind of making it up as I go, but I've done it enough to have some shape or form to what it is I want it to do. And so I give it some general instructions. I give it some knowledge. And then as I learn what it's good at and what it doesn't do really well, I just improve my instructions. Okay. So after all of this, give me a 1 in the chat if you have been kind of like you saw something new today, something to help you reimagine what you're even thinking of with this technology. If this helped you rethink anything. I'm looking at the chat. Catalina, I've been here, you know. If you had your mind a little bit blown by taking ChatGPT and then switching it from the ChatGPT, app and switching to use it inside of an automated workflow, give me a 2. If that was something new where you didn't realize like you could still prompt AI to help you automate things, it just needs to look different, right? You normally need a different app to do that. Give me a 2 in the chat if that was new or just really interesting for you. Now, here's the fun bit. While I went through the process and the questions to kind of ask yourself to begin to shape up your ideas and show you how I've done it, I know that it's still hard to go from 0 to 100 with this stuff. And so next week when we meet, which instead of waiting for another week, so it's not going to be bi-weekly, next week, I want to do hot seats with y'all. You're going to get an email, and in that email, I'm going to ask you to reply and give me a bit more form to your GPT. If you're willing to do that and reply, I'm going to ask you to actually come on and share. And we're going to talk it through. So not just through chat, but we're going to talk it through and maybe even, we might, if it's simple enough, we might prototype it, but just help you get clarity around what you're building. And if you're stuck and you want to share your screen, we can also do that and work through it as well. And so I really want to I want to demystify what it is to build a GPT that has utility. If you're building it for a customer, then bring that GPT idea as well, right? What does it mean to design something for someone else? We'll have that conversation as well. And then the week after next, we're going to do a practical build. And so if you do the hot seat, there's a chance that we're going to do your build. So I encourage all to reply to the emails. Okay, and then, I see you one question before we round up here. I have a few more minutes, and so I'm going to look for questions in the chat. Okay, CJ, you said, when do you build for others? Do you build it in their account? Oh, when I do build for others, do I build in their account? Yes, I do. Mostly because this isn't like code where you can just write it once and then push it everywhere. It's just not that way with these tools, right? I have to build in your ChatGPT account. I have to build in your Notion, in your Google Sheet, right? Even if I build a Google Sheet, if I add like an app script to it to automate things, because I do that as well, then it's just easier to build in your Google account. And also, as a tech professional, I don't like my clients wondering who owns what. I used to do that early in my career, and I just rather build your stuff with your data and your IP and your account so you know it's yours, right? And if we have an issue of payment, we do an issue of payment. That's normally why you would say, "Oh, I'll build it and then give it to you when it's done." But there's at some point you push past clients who are nervous like that, and you get better at client management to where you just build directly in their workspace. They own everything from the start, and it makes things a lot easier. That's what I've learned, particularly with all this no code, low code stuff, which is really hard to transfer and replicate things. Do we have any more questions? Yes, Elaine and Catalina, please connect. We love connections. I'm going to go back to the chat to see if I missed anything. Do I teach how to build GPTs in OpenAI? Uh, I don't normally teach that. It's normally work I do with clients. I'm exploring doing a bit behind the scenes with the webinars here. My focus for this next, I think through April, is really helping to encourage people to try to get into GPTs and demystify that technology. And I want to switch it up and go really heavy into, okay, now that you have a good understanding of AI and ChatGPT, what does it mean to roll this out in your organization? What does it mean to say we have this problem? We need to hire somebody to come in and bring a solution. What do we need to be ready to provide to somebody when we're trying to actually bring AI in and we need to build solutions? So how do you really prep to transform your business with AI, regardless of whether you're building something internally or externally? And then we're going to go through. Oh, thank you. Love the logo. I work hard at the logo. Um, I've done every iteration of my brand and logo since high school. And so this one was a couple hours, but it wasn't bad. It was a labor of love. And I appreciate that. Let me see if I missed any questions. I think we're good. If I missed anything, again, feel free to respond via the email as well, because I will follow up with those questions. If I get enough questions, I'll probably do an audio recording, podcast style, and just send it to y'all. But yes, definitely feel free to ask. Yes, mind blown. That's good. It's always a balance between mind blown and then, wait, that was so much. What do I do with it? So the good thing is it's recorded. There's a replay. You can slow it down if I got a little excited and talked a little too fast. But I am looking forward to next week with y'all's ideas. So keep an eye out for that email. Should go out latest Friday. And I will be so ready to hear what y'all are working on. And next week, it's all hot seat. So come ready with the questions. Be ready to be on camera if you're asked to do your questions. That would be helpful so people can put a name and a face together. And then also, if you notice in this chat, you can end up with your beta users and your testers. So invite other people to the live stream, right? That's a soft way of figuring out who that person you're building for is, by the way. Okay? This has been great, y'all. I will see you next week. But before then, I will see you in the inbox. So keep an eye out for the email.